You know, he's really he's shameless in intellectual argument. He's absolutely without character, a moral foundation, or even intellectual substance.
Which was like I think it was a satire. I think it was a German satire actually about someone clones Hitler. And it's called like Look
Oh,
Who's Back or something like that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um
Look,
yeah.
it was Look Who's Back. Yeah.
And it was like the cover, no swastikas or anything like that, but just the little mustache,
Mm.
like that's it.
That's
Like so
tasteful.
that's like the furthest they'll go in like the covers and stuff like that. Whereas like back in the day, and this was like closer to World War II and like the Holocaust and stuff in like the 60s and 70s and like just swastikas everywhere, like, and no one cared. Like it wasn't this like off-putting thing.
Mm.
And like there were people that suffered under that regime in living memory. It's so weird how like people just freely used it earlier and closer to the events than they do now, you know?
The spectre looms larger the further away you get, which
Yeah.
actually doesn't make sense.
Mm.
But what was that? Springtime for Hitler in Germany.
The
What was that again?
producers, the
Yeah.
producers.
When did that come out?
Oh, that was first like I think like the 60s or something. That's pretty
Exactly.
early. Yeah.
It's
By
so
Jews made that too. Like
yeah.
it's Mel Brooks. Like
It's
um
unthinkable. Yeah, and it happened 10 years afterwards. Yeah, I think I oh yeah, I think as well Alex Hans, he was talking about an article like fratire, like this
mm,
genre, like you think about American Pie, around about the time that was coming out, there was this satirical genre where it was all like frat bro satire. And you read a couple of like these passages, these are by like published mainstream figures in the early 2000s, right? And you read it now and you're like, oh my, like even me, right? Like, oh, that's a little bit distasteful. And
mm,
this is just like mainstream publishing. So you realize like it has gone very, very far. Like not within living memory, people wrote like satire that was a lot more biting and intense.
mm, mm. Yeah, I wonder what that's about. I think it's just about, you know, people would say I was complaining about some shit on Twitter the other day, and then someone like retweeted me and was like, I was talking about the publishing industry, and he was like, um, uh, neoliberalism is the reason it's like flattened everything. I was like, yeah, it kind of is, but like,
Mm,
there's other elements to this. Neoliberalism existed back then too, where there was like a little bit more freedom to do this stuff,
mm.
So, but I guess like the point about consolidation of and stuff like that, all of that boring business stuff is relevant. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Neoliberalism is just like a tripwire for me. Because if
yeah.
I hear someone say that, it
So
just like I'm just like, shut the fuck up. I can't do this
opinion
anymore.
dismissed.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't do this anymore. It's just like, what are you? And then it's like you're gonna start talking about Ronald Reagan or something,
Mm.
or
Do you
Margaret Thatcher. It's
do you
like
think like
straight out of a
oh,
thing.
well this is what like my like retort to this is because there's that meme about like feudalism and we should someone
It should
comes out of the
improve
well. Yeah,
society somewhat or whatever. Yeah.
I always use feudalism as like like neoliberalism is like feudalism. It's like if you were back in the Middle Ages, right? And someone's complaining about, oh, this this scythe isn't sharp enough to cut my grain, so like I'm not as productive as I could be. And then someone says, ah, yes, but the feudalist system that we live under is the reason for this. It's like that's not helping anyone. Like
Well,
it's
it's like
just
this.
saying that that's the system that you're in, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but back to what we were talking about Monty Python before, is it the Holy Grail where there's the guy going on about like anarcho syndicalism or whatever?
It's yeah, exactly. Exactly like that. Um, anyway, I should probably introduce the episode. Welcome back to the Getting Lit podcast. Last episode we had a crossover with Rare Candy with their Fresta went on and talked about Oil by Upton Sinclair. Great episode. You should go and check it out. This episode, we are speaking with Russell Walter, who is the author of the Russell Walter Substack. Really creative title, by the way, Russell. Um, and, uh, uh,
It used to be the Russell Walter Chud stack, and I was like, is that even less creative? I don't even know.
Um, and we're just having a chat. We're all like men of letters here. We're all Australian men of letters here, so maybe some of that will come into it. But we're also talking about this article that you recently wrote on your Substack, uh, a defense of LARPing. LARPing is cool, actually. Um, so for those who don't know, LARPing is live action role playing. Welcome, Russell.
What's going on? How's it going? Me and Matt are like besties at this point. We've spoken. I feel like in the past month, we like literally we've recorded however many podcasts and we've actually met up. So we've
Yeah,
spent like how many hours talking now? Like probably close
yeah.
to 10 hours of talking. Pretty absurd.
hmm
Considering
And
we've only met
texting, like,
once and
yeah,
texting
texting.
non-stop, plotting to like usurp the literary establishment in Australia, among other things. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's good. Good to be on.
What do you think? Entryism? Should we try entryism? Should I
What do you
go
mean?
get a job at Penguin Random
Oh,
House and then just like subvert it from within or
march through the institutions. Yeah, I'm sure that that will work out. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I liked about this article and a lot of your stuff in general is yeah, you sort of are able to talk about like these modern subcultures and things like that, but also bring in like a bit of erudition. Like you talk about Don Quixote in this article, which is amazing. Like I was like, how did he do it? How did he fold that in? And I'm guessing it's like partially it's just because you're reading it or you read it recently. But so take us through what's the idea behind LARPing? Why are you pro LARPing?
Well, just quickly, I was going to say, because I actually had someone message me, DM me on Substack, and
Hmm.
they sent me this piece, and it was like very academic.
Hmm.
And basically, I was saying to them, if you ever want someone to engage with something academic or literary, it's like you need to rug pull them,
Hmm.
basically. Like you need to kind of trick them into like they need some sort of buy-in because if it's just on Don Quixote, like I feel like if the piece was just on Don Quixote, it wouldn't have really resonated or people wouldn't have read it. So it's like you
Hmm.
got to trick people into reading these things. That's what I've tried to do. I've actually done a couple of those now, like book reviews that aren't like marketed, if that's the right word, as book reviews. But yeah, so the idea was, well, the piece starts. I actually have LARPed before, like, but not properly, like in Albert Park in Melbourne, for those in the know.
That's that's near my house.
Yeah, I don't know if they still do it there, but they did used to do it there, right? Like you would go on a whatever night, I can't remember. And for $2, you could go and LARP, and it was like quite a spectacle. There was probably like, 200 plus people like dressed up it pretty elaborately and you could LARP. And it's sort of the start of the piece is talking about like what is the appeal of LARPing, like why are people drawn to it, and effectively like my contention was that it's like we are living in like a disenchanted world, like a world without magic. That's sort of like the defining condition of modern life in a way is like, we're all secular. We're all like, even if we want to be religious, we're not really religious. You know what I mean? Like, and there is a sense I think that a lot of people have that we've lost something, right? Particularly in the new world. You know what I mean? Where we don't have a long history. It's like, there's this sense that we have lost something, we've lost connection to the past. And my contention was, in a way, maybe it's probably not what is drawing people to it. It's probably just because it's fun to go around hitting people. But like, I was trying to make this case where it's like people, there's this yearning for the past, and I do think there is within some people a certain people with a religious sentiment, I think. There is a yearning and this sense that something is missing. And I feel like that is in part what explains not just LARPing, but then you know how they have these like Renaissance festivals think that is part of the appeal as well, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is actually really interesting about the New World thing. I think that's a point that you could like really go down a rabbit warren with because the I don't, I don't know, maybe you if you know or not, like tell me, but like I feel like the LARPing thing and the Ren fairs and things like that is more a New World thing. It's like America, Australia, New Zealand, those sort of places because I feel like there is a connection to the past in like the old world. Like I find I still am amazed at it when I go to Europe and like people are just in Rome, for instance, people are just walking past the Colosseum on their way to work. And like, it's just insane to me because it's like there is like a thousand, like thousand year old like edifice, huge, like, and they're just like, oh, whatever. It's very everyday, but it's sort of
Yeah.
like it's so everyday, but it is like there's that connection that you can still make. Whereas like nothing here is that old. So it's like there's this it's almost like people are trying to create some kind of like long kind of ancient like mythos here in doing those
Yeah.
sort of activities.
The deracination thing is interesting because, like, you're tempted to say in the new world people are way more deracinated than in the old world, but you don't even know if that's, I don't even know if it's entirely true because, like you said, in the same way that, like, you always end up taking wherever you are for granted. Like, if
Hmm.
you live by the beach, it's not uncommon for people to spend hardly any time at the beach. And
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of Europeans, it's almost like you said, that they're not phased by it. They don't really care. But when
Hmm.
we go there, like when I go, for example, I think York, where that's where my family is from. York, I think, maybe I'm wrong, is one of the best preserved medieval
Yeah, yeah,
cities
it's
in the
beautiful.
world.
The shambles, the yeah.
Yeah, there's a particular street where I think like yeah, it's insane. It's like the buildings are literally from 1100,
Yeah.
right? And they're like sinking. They look
You can walk the parapets and stuff still, but it still has the old walls and things like that there.
yeah.
I've never been, but like my partner is from Yorkshire, so he's told me all about it. So
Yorkshire
yeah.
that for me is actually like it sounds weird like that I my family's from Yorkshire and I've spent so much time in Yorkshire and I don't know when it started to really have an impact on me because Yorkshire, unlike, let's say, Southwest England or London, right? Like it is a place that does feel much more antiquated, I think, and
Mm,
whimsical almost. Um, and yeah, that for me was a huge source of inspiration. And going there, it's simultaneously like you're enthusiastic, but then there's this sense of loss because you realize like we
mm,
just don't have this sort of stuff in Australia. So yeah, that definitely I agree. But yeah, I don't think they care about it as much as perhaps
mm.
like we do, ironically.
But I do wonder if there's a correlation between like how much LARPing happens in like the new world versus the old world. Because I'm sure there are people who do it in like continental Europe and probably more likely in like England and British Isles and stuff. But still, there's this sense of that, where you're kind of creating something here that is just sort of there over there, like in a very kind of materialized, concrete way.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
So, when take us through what like I really want to know because I've never done it. I don't really want to ever do it. But is it like a video game? Do you like choose what you are? Are you like I'm a rogue,
Uh,
so I have like a
well,
bow and arrow and stuff
they
like that?
probably do. They
Yeah.
do that. I mean, like for me, like we would rock up and we would take in the piss basically.
Mm,
So we would rock up. I think I did it like 3 times. And we would just rock up in our school uniform. So we'd just be wearing like our school uniform, and then they'd give us a sword. And like what would almost always happen is originally they're really friendly and they're just keen to get people involved. But then there'd be other people, because I suspect this actually does happen, where they can tell you're there to take the piss and they're like, kind of like, fuck off. You know what I mean?
mm, mm,
But they just give you a
Well,
sword.
you're collapsing the fantasy. Like if they're trying
Exactly.
to,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
de re.
actually a bad thing to do. Like, yeah,
mm,
you are breaking people out of the fantasy precisely. Because it's like WWE. You need to believe it's real.
mm,
You know what I
mm.
mean? But yeah, we would just go and they'd give you a sword, and then yeah, it is like a significant, like, perhaps as many as 100 people going up against 100 people, and it's like, hold the line, like this sort of thing. I mean, and there's and there'd be like there would be rogues, like you said, rogues. Like I remember there was this like this maniacal guy, like he's running around with face paint, and he was like so quick, like he actually was really athletic and agile, and he's coming around like doing like
He
roguish.
maxed out his agility points.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He has
Yeah.
maxed out. He is literally, he was like very quick and he
Mm.
was very maniacal and he would do like roguish laughs when he comes up and like you. And you are literally like, what the fuck is going on? But then, yeah, like I said, I actually did when I was doing it. I sort of dramatized the story. Um, it's not like for example, the my lord, the person who was leading our little faction, right? He wasn't actually quoting Shakespeare before we went into battle, but that just struck me as funny, so I just did it, put it in anyway. But what was I thinking? It's like yeah, I was like, so I was at the back. I was at the back of the group, and we were laughing, and we were taking the piss, and we were sort of breaking people out of the world, like making fun of them. And I literally did have a thought, kind of going back to what we were saying before. I'm like, this is kind of like dickhead behavior. It's like these people are actually having
Mm.
fun. They're doing something like pretty pro-social in a way. They're all getting together in a park. And I'm like, you know what? Like maybe I actually should like get amongst it and like try and have fun. And that's literally what did inspire me. I literally did run to the front of the thing and just jump up and smack someone in the head. And it is actually true. Like that is not dramatizing the story. That like everyone stopped fighting and was like, "What the fuck? You're not meant to hit people in the head." Um, and that was a moment of me getting like carried away. But yeah, it's like there obviously is a code. Like you what this is what's allowed. This is what isn't. But yeah, I don't know. The whole thing it was pretty fun. And but what I compare it to, obviously, it's become it's become a sort of metaphor for politics now.
Mm.
It's at this point it's an exhausted kind of word. People have been accusing people of LARPing online for a long time now. But it's just interesting that that's kind of become a political metaphor, isn't it?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, like people are, and but one of the things that you sort of talk about in the piece, which I think is true, is that you're LARPing until you're not, and
Mm.
that's like what your sort of almost what you're taking it, you're not taking it seriously. You're just putting on a costume until like eventually you just kind of just becomes reality,
Yeah.
and it's the
Well,
same.
everything, that's the contention of the piece is that like
Mm,
everything great begins as a LARP. Like every visionary begins as a LARPer. And there was this quote like, what is the line between like a freedom fighter and a terrorist? Like that was one of the
mm,
things people used to say. It's very thin, right? And likewise, it's like the line between a visionary and a LARPer is actually quite thin because
mm,
they're always dismissed originally as like LARPers. This is jumping ahead, but we may as well. It's like I kind of use the example of Theodor Herzl, who is like the founding father of Zionism, right? And interestingly,
mm,
he was a playwright. Okay, so he
mm,
was a playwright. He did all of these plays, and then he got this idea in his head. It's like, hey, I'm going to be like a modern Moses. I'm going to take the Jews back to the promised land, like back to the Holy Land, and we're going to colonize Ottoman Palestine. And people ridiculed him mercilessly. They literally compared him to Don Quixote, right? Which we'll
mm,
get into soon. They said he was like a Jewish Jules Verne. And he himself, I didn't cite this in the quote because it was one of those, when you can't seamlessly insert a quote, that was the problem I had. But when he was going to Palestine, right, he literally said, he's like, I'm still putting on plays. He's like, I
mm,
get these because he's all like, this is a digression, but whatever. His whole idea was there was all of like these, they were called Yids. They're like uneducated Jews from Eastern Europe. They had grown up in the shtetl, right? And because of like various pogroms, they began to migrate west into places like Vienna, right? And they were uneducated, they were dirty, they were all of these Jewish stereotypes, right? And Theodore Herzl was an assimilated Jew, and he he was like embarrassed by them. And basically he had this idea, it's like we need to uplift these people. Like we need to like educate them and lift them up. And that was what Zionism was. Like it was this idea of like a turning these like what they called yids, it's a derogatory term, um, to like lift them up in yeah. But yeah, he literally kind of saw it as playwriting, and he had this quote. It's like, "If you will it, it is no dream," because he was always denounced as a dreamer. And yeah, like I said, it was a ridiculous idea until it wasn't. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So, I kind of compare that to the total lack of vision on behalf of like the political class. It's like very, very pragmatic, bureaucratic, et cetera, et cetera. There's no animating vision for the future. And I
Mhm.
think that like you look back, you think about like Gabriele D'Annunzio and all of these like these people who were theater kids, like these sort of theater
Mm.
kids who actually seized the state and tried to and they conceived of politics almost as like grand theater. You know what I mean? So I don't know, like that was kind of what I was trying to get at. It's like we kind of need some quixotic, we need some LARPing. We need someone with a big vision. They're going to get ridiculed, but we actually do need that now. That's my central contention.
Mm. And it's not just in politics either. It's like it's not
Mm.
just the political class, it's also the creative class. And we spoke about this on your podcast, that roundtable thing, like where people it's that same lack of vision. And it's like there's a sort of like uh desiccated pragmatism to everything that it's like, the goods, something needs to, like something will get published in this country, especially if it's like has easily impartable lessons and things like that, like something that can be put
Mm.
on the school board or whatever and be, added to libraries and things like that. And it's the sort of the same dynamic, right? Like no one is like pushing like their will out there, like, so. And like I love that quote as well, like what is it, where there's a um
If you
like
will it, it is no dream.
it is no dream. Yeah, so it's like, and that's like the kind of artist that I respect and I aim to be, is that you basically have to, like, I don't mean this politically, but you have to fascistically like impose your will on the world. Like you have to do that, like in order
Like the
to,
magic trick of like, you've you've envisioned something and then you turn it into reality kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. And you
Well,
can do
that
that.
is
And everything says that you can't do that, but you actually can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
everything like that is the artistic process is like
Mm,
taking something that is in your head, something that is in your imagination, and trying to bring it into the world. And I think about something like you can still see remnants of this. Like you think about the Shrine of Remembrance,
mm,
right? Like if you actually look into the thought that went behind that, it is like a pagan temple, right? It's a pagan temple dedicated to a hero cult of like the Anzacs. And these
mm,
people were like studying antiquity, and they had the idea that, this is like an Australian Parthenon. This will be here for
mm,
thousands of years. It's like, does
mm,
anyone in the creative class currently think like that?
mm,
And even like you take like for me, like I don't know when exactly my aesthetic sensibility was like aroused or whatever, right? But in part it was by like public sculpture, or like often like I was never so much inspired. Like I'm like Marinetti. It's like bomb the museums, bomb the galleries. What inspired me was like the public art, if you will. Like you walk through Fitzroy Gardens,
mm,
like this is a small little detail, right? But this is the sort of details which I feel like are lacking because people just lack artistic imagination, right? Like, if you have an aerial view of that garden, it's a Union Jack. They've used trees to create this Union Jack. Even walking through like Melbourne, right? Melbourne is not a very, especially not back then, right? It wasn't some cultural capital. It wasn't a Paris or a New York. But even these like second tier artists were creating incredible sculptures. You know what I mean? And I think that they were thinking back, but they were simultaneously thinking forward. And they're trying to like, like you said, there is something almost fascistic about it. It's like trying to impose your worldview or something. Or I
mm,
don't know, not even worldview, that's not right. I'm not sure what the world is. It's like a metaphysical thing almost.
Mm.
Like, so yeah, I agree with you. It's like ambitious artistic projects are so lacking. Everything is so meek and weak. You know what I mean? No one's doing anything ambitious. But yeah. The funny thing is, though, I was actually just going to quickly say, like, even think, Matt, like what we've been talking about, like, it is LARPing. Like, if we're being
Mm.
real, like the way that we're
Mm.
talking right now about like a burgeoning literary scene in Australia and stuff like that, like, we are trying to sort of like will something into existence.
Hyperstition,
Yeah, yeah.
hyperstition it. Yeah.
Yeah, so and like a lot of people, like even myself, it's like, okay, is that LARPing? Does this really exist? It's like, well, no, not really, but we're trying to, like you said, we're trying to like, we're trying to like convince. Well, if you will it is no dream. It's like there is the will
Mm.
there. So it's like now it's like trying to build that, build a
Mm.
scene, build some sort of artistic, literary community in Australia, like that, like something that we would like. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have to
So,
like trick people into like thinking it is real and that there's
mm.
like, and then that's when it becomes real. It's like a cargo cult or whatever when they're like imitating the like planes landing and stuff. They just never like succeeded in getting to the next stage, but it's like the same kind of thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
In the esoteric realm, it's kind of like the magic thing, which I'm not really into, but like I know I have friends who are into it. I'm sure Frest has read plenty of this, the sigil
Yeah,
magic
yeah.
and shit like that. Like you,
Not so much sigil
um,
stuff, but I know
yeah,
I know what the deal is. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I just, I'm not drawing a fucking seal and then coming on it. I'm sorry, I'm just not doing that. Like,
Yeah,
um,
but I mean
um,
that's like the thing is with that is it's just about the intention put
yeah, yeah,
into
yeah.
it. It's like so you can do it with anything. You could if you just it's just like it's like a lot of these you read like the Golden Dawn book and they're like you've got to craft this staff and paint it this way. It's just because you spend so many hours and so much time. It's like your will gets focused onto that thing. But you can do it in any kind of way. You don't have to
Oh,
follow. Like people think like oh that's the literal actual accurate instructions. It's like no, it's more like loose than that.
Mm, mm, mm.
embarrassing. I remember now, like it's so funny. I forgot that I did this, but I actually have. I did like some really butchered version where it was just like you light two candles and then you jump over them. Like I actually did that.
Yeah.
It's like I think I was like I don't know how old I was, but yeah, that's got like yeah, it's like some sort of meant to be some. But yeah, the way that I did it was not so much advertised as magic as it was a ritualistic thing where it's like you're doing this. But yeah, I
Mm,
don't know. That stuff is a little unusual.
mm, mm.
Mm. Yeah,
And
it's the
like
same as like dream boards or like the secret or any of that. Like it's just about focusing your will and putting it.
well,
If you put enough,
yeah, it's all the same, isn't it? Like it's all kind of the same thing when you think about it. Like that's what an
Yeah.
artist does. Like they're focusing their will towards some kind of end and they've got their rituals, they've got their like process. That's what a process is. Like it's
mm,
a kind of ritual. Some artists literally do rituals as well, like magical rituals. Like so yeah, there's all that sort of stuff. It's all of a piece, I think. Um,
mm,
but it is interesting to me that like, there is a kind of yeah, this like imposition of your will onto the world is like this and I think this is something that me and Russell have spoken about. I can't remember if it was in public or just on the phone or in person or whatever. But I think that is like more promising and more operative in the new world, actually. Like, I know that people have been doing like based edits of your old YouTube videos about the
Mm.
Faustian spirit in the new world, which is pretty funny.
The
But
Zoomers, I've actually got another one I need to post.
yeah.
I'll post it today. I've got like a couple of these Zoomers who like I think it's called like the Hyperborean edit style where it's like
black
and
sun circling around your
yeah,
head. Kind of.
yeah, but they're just taking my old YouTube videos, turning them into like these really overstimulating 1 minute clips. But it is cool. Like I actually do like to see it. Yeah.
But I do, but the point being that like I think in that there's more of a impetus I think to impose your will in this way, like, whether that's politically or artistically or whatever, because the disenchantment is more visible here
Mm.
in like places like Australia and the US and New Zealand, and so it's like this. Uh, yeah, that's what the
It's like the forces
and
you have to contend against aren't as strong.
mm, mm, yeah. So
And
it's
also the
that's and
ugliness
that
is
goes back to
more
Faust
overbearing.
as well too, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly.
Sorry.
The ugliness is, I was just gonna say the ugliness is more overbearing. And
Mm,
especially in Australia, I just don't think that we have like a mythos anymore. Like or whether we ever did, I don't know, right? We don't have this sort of like mythos. We don't have
yeah.
this magic.
Well.
And if you think about like art, it's so clear
Mm,
that um art and mythology are inextricably linked. It's like
mm,
who tells the myths? It's the
mm,
artists, it's the poets, it's the epic poetry, right? They are the myth makers. And that's I think the greatest artists, like the most ambitious artists are myth makers, right?
mm,
But like I think very few people are called to like those heights. But it is there is, I think that is what we were talking about, that lack of artistic ambition, right? Who is engaging, even engaging, right? Who's
mm,
engaging with myth, who's even engaging with like our traditions, right? Like take even like it sounds, I mean, I actually do want to talk about Dan Baltic's book, because we should talk about Don Quixote first and then talk about Dan Baltic's book, because on the face of it, this is not a myth making book, right? Dan Baltic's one, but he is actually doing something, like he's engaging with the quixotic tradition, right? Which is an old one. So, it's more ambitious than it actually appears on the face of it.
mm, mm. Yeah, like the yeah, the need to like create a myth. I think we used to have a mythos in Australia,
Mm,
but I think that a lot of that has been kind of stripped mined, like in
mm,
this really perverse way. So, you know, one, so much of it has been sort of denounced as problematic. This is real boomer quadrant takes, but
mm.
like it's true.
Correct.
Like they're
Yeah.
right about some things. And I'm not angling for a hosting job at Sky News After Dark, although maybe.
I'll take it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but you know what I mean. It's like
Yeah.
people, and even to the like I get so this is me at my most reactionary is whenever someone defaces or like chops
Mm,
off the head of like Anzac statues and stuff like that. And now I've gotten to the point where even doing that to colonial authorities, which I was kind of on their side back, like in the sense of the activist. So I was sort of like, yeah, colonial authorities from a past time, we don't need that. And now I'm like, no, don't do that. Like this is part of our
Yeah.
history. It's the same with the Confederate statues in the US. You should just leave them there. They're part of your history and your myth, like, and
Even
so,
Banksy's new gay ass statue, like no one
mm,
should tear that down either, even though it
yeah, yeah,
sucks. And no one
yeah,
will.
it's, yeah,
That one
yeah.
won't get touched, you know?
Yeah, so there's this like process of stripping all this stuff out, sometimes remaking it into the kind of the vision that is acceptable. Like I real one thing you would be familiar with, actually you both probably familiar with this, is the inner city like sort of performative ocarism. Have
mm.
you ever encountered this? It's usually like a blue-haired barista who's
Mm.
like non-binary or something and has a dangly earring, but they're all like, "Oh yeah, I can do that for you, mate." It's like,
Yeah.
come on. That's
Yeah, they do it
LARPed.
this performative way. It's like when people who didn't grow up saying cunt all the time start
Yeah.
saying it in their 20s, and there's always this
And
kind of
we
like,
did, so we can smell it. We know when
yeah,
it's
yeah.
fake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can just see the fakeness, or they'll just be like, mate, like they'll just do that shit. And like, and you're just like, but then they encounter like an actual like working class person who would do it, and they're immediately like turned off by it.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone in
Exactly.
London is doing that. Like every Australian in London is like, it's like
Yeah,
back.
that's true. That's usually get pussy though. That's
Yeah,
what that is.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Oh yeah,
definitely
well that's fine.
it's definitely a strategy, but like I remember, like you go there and you just like some guy who grew up in like I don't know, maybe Vaucluse.
Chatswood.
Yeah, but he's
Yeah.
suddenly he's suddenly like, how's it fucking going? Like,
Yeah.
like, brother, we both know that you do not talk like this back home, but you know what? I'll let it pass because you're right. It's a mating strategy that seems effective in London. But, Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
Well, you
so
actually, sorry, I was just
so
going to say your podcast was called New Mythology. So like
mm,
this is like absolutely up your alley.
yeah, yeah. Well, my Substack is now. I've kind of sunsetted the podcast element because I'm just gonna have this podcast as, on the Substack as well, because doing two podcasts at once is just too much.
Yeah.
Especially, I started that when I didn't have a job, and now I do have a job, and it's yeah, and I'm
Mm,
writing another novel, so it's like I can't commit to two podcasts.
yeah.
Um, But yeah, so I do think it's an important, and it's not just in Australia, the New World. I think it's like there is a lack of that mythological thinking in
Mm,
terms of people who want to create stuff. I think it's just it's why people kind of hate all this autofiction stuff because
mm,
there's no myth making in that. It's just like, here's what I did today. I checked my emails. I ate some pork rinds. Like and like I think you could, speaking of satire, you could push that genre to really interesting heights if you started getting esoteric and mythological and things like that.
mm.
Start
I think the
start
problem with
putting
auto,
mythical beings in your auto fiction. Why not? Like I
yeah.
went I went down to the lake and I encountered a bunyip and then like talk about that.
It's like there's no the problem with autofiction is right, like there's always going to be this like performative element to writing,
Mm,
right? As in like you are writing for an audience, and then it's like, okay, if you're writing about yourself, it's like even if you are like one of these very frank and honest people, and you're willing to let it all hang, it's like there's always going to be I think okay, Willebeck is an example where there is this auto-fictional element to Willebeck's.
Welbeck.
Sorry?
yeah.
Michelle Welbeck, you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
oh
He's
yeah.
doing the
like,
Anglo pronunciation.
Yeah, I just for a
Yeah.
second I was like, Welbeck, I don't know that guy. And I was like, oh
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna. It's like
It's a weird word.
we were talking about it. Like, I say Puglia. Like before we started recording, it's like I will always say Puglia with a G. Like I'm not gonna say Puglia. Like this is we've. There's got to be some benefits to being the lingua franca of the world.
Yeah.
There's got to be
Imposing your
some. It's got to be like
spelling will.
you can travel anywhere you want and you can pronounce the words however the fuck you like. Um, yeah, but you take the map and the territory, like he literally is in that book.
Mm,
And he is someone where he is willing to expose the most like disgusting elements of himself. And that's why it's interesting, right? But I'm saying most of these people, like, I don't know, like first and foremost, they're not really that interesting. And second, I don't know, like I think you need to, it's good to write about characters that are not yourself because there's this distance there between you and them. You know what I mean? I think
Mm,
that helps. You can talk about things a little more honestly.
yeah. One of the funnest things about like writing a character, and if you're doing a particular kind of narration, is that you can just say things about them that can kind of be shady, can be like, like you can characterize them in a way that's like not necessarily flattering. But then
Mm,
even when people do that in autofiction and it's like a version of themselves and they do the unflattering depiction, it's this weird thing where you can sort of see that it's a kind of humble brag, like
mm.
I'm so self-aware that I can depict myself in this way, like, and I
Or it's like,
think,
I'm so crazy and weird and
yeah,
wacky.
there's that too. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
such a manic pixie dream girl, yeah.
Exactly.
Remember
That's
that
definitely
archetype?
part of it.
Yeah.
That's definitely part of it. Yeah. Um,
Yeah. But so in terms of, so where does Don Quixote come into all this? Like, so what's your thoughts on LARPing and its relationship to Don Quixote, who is a great character, by the way.
yeah. One of
Fantastic
the
character.
I
best.
just actually started listening to the audiobook of it after I read your article.
Mm.
Because I didn't realize it was actually like meant to be kind of funny. I
Mm.
just had
Oh,
heard of
It's
it.
hilarious. It's still
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 and that is that's like no small feat because humor tends to date really
Mm.
quick.
Yeah.
Like even like I know you guys were talking about Monty Python, right? Like I've been recommended Monty Python by so many people, and I look, I haven't made a proper attempt to engage with it, but I just don't find it that funny. I feel like maybe if I grew up with it, it'd be different. There'd be like a
Yeah.
nostalgic element. I just don't. I don't find it that. There are scenes that I find funny from Monty Python, definitely. I need to make more of an attempt, but I don't know, like there's so humor just dates very quickly, but this is from 1605, and no exaggeration, you will guarantee have at least like 10 times you genuinely laugh out loud whilst
Mm.
reading the book, which is no small feat. It's really hard to make people, I think, actually laugh. Like, you think about a lot of like satire, for example, which we were talking about before we started recording. A lot of the humor is not so much like laugh out loud humor as it is like wry, amusing, witty. You know
Mm.
what I mean? You're like,
Yeah.
you
You
smile.
smirk and wink
It's
kind of
like,
Yeah,
thing.
because it's because of the
yeah.
cleverness almost. You're like, it's
Yeah.
like the wittiness and the cleverness. But this is like the form of humor Don Quixote has is like like perennial. It will never die. It's just like slapstick humor, which is people just getting fucking hurt. Like
Yeah.
like
Vomiting in someone's face.
yeah, that shit will never not be funny. And also like like delusional people are just like always going to be funny. And that's the humor stems. A lot of the humor is literally just slapstick humor, like very lowbrow. Like this was, I believe, like when it came out, right? Like Shakespeare. So, like, well, Cervantes is called the Spanish Shakespeare,
Mm.
but he was one of these people, and this is like the mark of a great myth maker, right? This is what so few people can actually do. Even great writers, like this is what separates like the creme de la creme, like national figures like Cervantes and Shakespeare from like good literary writers. Like Zola, I don't think is a great writer, but I don't think he was a myth maker in the same way like Shakespeare and Cervantes was. Is that they can talk to sort of the lowbrow and the highbrow simultaneously, right?
Mm.
That you could go into a pub and Don Quixote, they were reading Don Quixote in taverns and
Mm.
people were pissing themselves. Like uneducated, illiterate people were pissing themselves. And that was the same with Shakespeare, right? Is like people can follow it, they find it funny. And and even like I mean, it's weird. This is a weird digression, but like even you take something like The Simpsons. Like The Simpsons does this well. This is the great
Mm.
mythos of the future, Homer Simpson.
Mhm.
But no, that as in they like kids can watch The Simpsons and find it funny. But if you were to watch the episodes like when you're a little bit older, you realize, oh, like there's innuendo there. Like that didn't I didn't catch that when I first watched it. So being able to
Mm.
speak
There's so many layers.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Being able to do that simultaneously.
Mm.
So that's what he does. So the humor, like I said, there's a lot of slapstick humor, which is lowbrow. But then a lot of the humor does stem from his delusion. So like the way he perceives reality is always at odds with reality. So like he sees prostitutes and he thinks they're like aristocratic ladies and things like that. You know what I mean? And everyone's always kind of like they cotton on to the fact that he's crazy, and then they're like, okay, like it's so like it's just like so it's just like a feature of human nature, you know what I mean? Like you could almost imagine like if you were to meet someone who's grandiose and delusional, how you and your mates would almost be like, okay, like nudging each other, like let's take the piss out of this guy. And
Mm.
it does that so well, and it's so old, which yeah makes it. But the way go like leaving the humor aside, the thing that caught me is like, okay, we're all using this word LARPing, right? It's like part of the internet lexicon, right? You call people who are into internet politics LARPers. And it's like, well, this is a book about LARPing. You know what I mean? This is a book about someone he's a geriatric aristocrat, a sort of like minor nobleman who gets really into chivalric romances, which is sort of like, I guess, like the fantasy of the 16th century. It was like really popular. This is where, the stories of like Lancelot and all of that stuff come from. These tales of like, slaying dragons and getting the damsel and stuff like that. Super popular in Spain. And he is satirizing that genre by taking like a figure like Lancelot, and that is the ideal that Don Quixote looks up to, even though he's like I think he's 60 years old or so. He's
Mm.
very old when this book is taking place, and he's reading these chivalric romances. He's not sleeping, and he basically becomes insane and is convinced like okay, I am like a knight errant, right? And I need to go and save the world. I need to save Spain. I need to go on adventures. Um, and it's kind of funny because the thing is that he makes a mockery of the ideal. You know what I mean? Like the ideals by him trying to adhere to them, he kind of makes a mockery of them. And it's the same with LARPing, right? Like in the same way when you have like an IT worker who's like overweight and you know what I mean, spends too much inside, and then he's going out and he's like, um,
In
a knight
chainmail.
or he's in chainmail. You know what I mean? Like this is he kind of ends up making a mockery of that historic ideal. You know what I mean? Even like you think about like Milady, right? Like that's like something like now, which is just like a meme effectively. But like that was a way of greeting, I guess, that was common among like knights. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was basically. I see it. I see Don Quixote as a book about LARPers. Like I think that's where the humor stems from. Um, and yeah, and then you've got this thing of the quixotic character, right? Who's a sort of comedic hero, which is I thought that's a really interesting archetype. I don't know. I'm going a little bit off the reservation here, so I'm just gonna like spill out. My thoughts aren't fully formed on this, right? But after World War II, there was this whole idea of like you can't really have a hero, you know anymore.
Mm.
Like the anti-hero tradition kind of begins in earnest after World War II, in part because people saw the conception of like the heroic as like fascistic. You know what I mean? It is quite a fascistic concept.
Mm.
And like I've always been like, we need the heroic. We need the heroic in our art and our literature. But then you do kind of realize like there is some truth to that idea that the hero, if you were to do that really earnestly, it almost wouldn't work. Am I making sense here? Like if you were to write
Yeah.
Yeah.
someone, it would be too easy to satirize. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So it's almost like now, if you want to engage with heroism, you need to do it through the comedic hero,
Mm.
like or the quixotic character. The quixotic character being someone who has absorbed so much literature that basically they become indistinguish. They can't distinguish between the books they read and reality, or the stuff that they scroll on the internet and reality.
Yeah, there's like a delusional um element to it than
Yeah.
like delusion versus reality. And the thing about that as well that I think it's in Don Quixote and other examples of the quixotic hero though as well is that um it's satirical or comedic or whatever word you want to use there. Like it's funny to like represent this person as, completely deluded, their distorted views of reality and other characters sort of interacting with that. Um, but it's also by virtue of the fact that you spend a lot of time with them, they
Mm,
don't just they're not just a ridiculous figure. They are ridiculous figures, but they're not just that. Like there's a durational element to like characters in fiction that I think you actually end up kind of coming to sort of love and revere Don Quixote in a way and heroes like that because it's like um, you're not you're seeing them through their kind of delusions of grandeur. Like there's a portal to their humanity there that you kind
mm,
of see, and it's not just this like the usual comedic thing is just to lambast this person and like it's a I guess I would say it's the opposite of the humanistic outlook in that it's like heh, stupid humans, like
mm,
sort of thing. But like in a novelistic work like Don Quixote and its followers, there's this like durational aspect to it. You spend a lot of time with this character, and it's not just they're just ridiculous and that's that. You kind of come to love them, or
mm.
at least know them in a kind of more rounded way. So it's not quite just like a kind of slapstick sort of comedic send up of a type. It moves out of archetype into something else, something more, I think, into that mythic realm.
Definitely. There's the thing is with Coyote, right? Is that in many ways he like he's totally delusional, but then in other regards, he's very wise, right?
Mm.
And that's actually something that's commented on the book. Like forgive, I actually did read it quite some time ago, right? So I was kind of having to go back, but I do remember a scene, right, where he's visited by like a scholar, right? And the scholar gets into a conversation and they begin to talk about like maybe it's the nature of heroism or nobility or whatever. And the scholar knows his reputation for being delusional, right? But he walks away from the conversation almost like he's extremely wise, right? Because when he deliberates
Mhm.
on these topics, right, he actually has very insightful things to say. Um, so in certain regards, and I know Nabokov. I didn't read the book, but he did lectures on Don Quixote, and I want to say that like he compared him to like a Christ-like figure or something like that. So I didn't really engage with that, but there is
Like kind of
actually,
almost a holy fool or something. Like he's got
yeah,
like good
yeah.
intentions and like he has like a noble spirit. It's just that he sees a herd of sheep and thinks they're like Moors or something.
Yeah, he's definitely he's definitely a holy fool, but that's exactly right. Is he does bad things, but he's not an evil person. Like he always has great intentions. And then I think another thing is it does speak to it's actually very relevant to what we were speaking about because he has this yearning, right, for the golden age, which is I think Hesiod speaks about this. I've never read that, so this idea that there was like a golden age and we're now living in the Iron Age, and he wants to return to the Golden Age. He believes that he is going to bring that back. But like you can see like you think about the time this book came out, it was a time where I think I said this in the piece. You're on the precipice of two ages, which is the medieval age and sort of the Renaissance, right? Or the age of reason, whatever you want to call it. And he's on the precipice of these two ages. And we can see even then, right? Like we don't think about that time as being modern because it was so long ago, but it really is like, you know, the 1600s, the 1500s is modernity, right? Like you do have, like you have Copernicus, you have Galileo, you have this scientific tradition and this tradition of like reason emerging. And you can tell, right? Like there were virtues to the medieval world. There are virtues that the knight errant has that were being lost. Like they actually, like Don Quixote is right. Like he is
Mm.
right in so many ways. It's just that those virtues, I think maybe what Cervantes is alluding to or getting at is like you are right. There are virtues to that world, but if you were to try and bring them back, you almost make a mockery of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and they're not fit for purpose. They're not of the time that it's in. Like, and I think there are certain times that might have been one of them where there's sort of like this kind of you'll love this because it's kind of getting into Nietzschean stuff where
Mm,
like, you know, the old morality and the old ways of doing things doesn't necessarily apply. And there's always these hinge points through history where
mm,
like an old way of like being is dying and but still what but people like can people who have either experienced the after effects of it or indeed the old way itself want to sort of bring it back into the future. And this is actually the fundamental problem I think with conservatives is that what they want to do is they want to bring back we want to go back to the 90s. You know, there's that whole thing that with those idiots like what's his name, the guy's obsessed with cultural Marxism, James Lindsay, who like
yeah.
Oh yeah.
basically just wants to go to basically just wants to go to like classical liberalism in the 90s, and like that's never coming back. Like so it's like, and conservatism tries to bring back even for like the 50s or something like that, also never coming back. And
Or you
so
get the
like
traditionalists,
you
they're trying to
need
bring back like 3000 BC or whatever.
Mm.
yeah, yeah, it's not coming back. It just isn't. And I think we're actually in one of those pivot points
Pivot
now
point,
because
definitely.
it's like um, and this is the issue. It's not going to work. Like the boomers are dying off, and the problem, I think, a lot of the problem with the stuck culture, all the problems with the economy and stuff like that, is one. A lot of I love boomers, so I'm just disclaiming this right now. I don't hate boomers as much as most elder millennials do. Uh, Great culture, great music, like
Mm.
a lot of stuff. I love my
Just
parents. They're
quickly,
boomers.
that would be a good piece. Someone needs to do that. Like, I feel like we're at the point where, like, if someone writes a piece like decrying boomers, it's like, God, like, it's like
Yeah,
neoliberalism, right? It's like a
yeah,
tripwire
yeah.
thing. Like,
Like,
stop, stop.
and
But
as
someone should do
if
a piece, like, contrarian piece. This is just for whoever's listening who's on Substack. This blog, I think, would do well. Like, making case defending boomers.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that would, I feel like that
Because
could be good.
also it's just the accident of their birth. Like every one of us would be exactly like them if we were
Yeah.
born back then. Like we
Dude,
would.
and millennials will be
Yeah.
like, dude, like it's like wait and see, wait.
Millennials would be worse.
No,
Yeah.
we'll like, yeah, we're all freaking selfish. But yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, I
But
interrupted.
the point is that like there's a lot of problems that in some cases I'm talking creative, I'm talking economic, financial, like all of these societal, cultural, all of these problems are hangovers from the boomer era, right?
Mm.
And to if you go further back, like post World War II, probably a little bit before that. Um, and like people are trying to solve them with boomer era kind of concepts and ideas. So it's like um and it's just not going to work. Like what you have to do is you have to burn away that era and like create something new essentially because
But you
that's
need
how
to,
we
it's
got to
like,
this
yeah,
place. Yeah.
the archetype needs to be reimagined because in some
Yeah.
sense, I mean, like you know that song by Johnny Cash, the amazing song Highwayman?
Mm,
You know that
mm.
song?
I think
Anyway,
so.
like what it's about a highwayman, right? And basically it is a very archetypal song in that it's talking about different forms of like frontiersman masculinity or Faustian masculinity throughout the ages. You have the frontiers, oh sorry, the highwayman. Like that archetype does not really exist now, right? It was from a particular era, like the Wild West, whatever you want to call it, right? And then he talks about like dam, they talk about dam builders, right? Like, you know, again, this sort of like very rugged masculine type. And it ends with being like, you know, it's like I won't sing the lyrics, but it's like I'll always be around, right? He's talking about talking about flying a starship, right?
Mm,
And it was almost like this idea is like the frontiersman, because we're at this hinge point in history, the frontier is closed, right? So that means the frontiersman, the highwayman, that archetype doesn't exist. And if you were to try and bring it back in its original sort of, well, in the way that you know it, it would be humorous. It would be farcical. History
mm,
repeats itself first as tragedy, then as farce, then as LARP. You know what I mean?
mm,
Like where the archetype never dies, but it's always reconfigured. So what will happen is when we do start colonizing space, the frontiersman will emerge again. The cowboy
mm,
will emerge again, but he will not be recognizable in his historic form, right? There will be things about him that are consistent and reminiscent of that archetype, but it's totally different. And what I was trying to get at, right, in the piece, I'm glad we're talking about this because this is like kind of what I was trying to get at is, you know, when he's talking about knight errants, it's like the Spanish are colonizing the New World. The
mm,
conquistadors, like people like Cortez, are going to the New World and they're you know literally taking over continents,
mm,
right? So he's talking about, you know, that this is not an age of adventure and stuff like that. It's like, it absolutely is. It
mm,
absolutely is. The archetype of the knight errant has been reconfigured as the conquistador, right? And he, because he is so hung up on the past, he can't see that. So the point that you made is exactly what I was trying to get at, which is that a lot of these people, like I'm one of them, these terminally online right wing guys, are so caught up on these historic types, right? They want to be like this. It's like you will, if you like maybe a good practical example is like a traditional Catholic. Sort of like you always end up kind of making a mockery of traditional Catholicism. Like if you're not like a lot of the people do when
mm.
they're very earnest and you know they learned about Catholicism online and they sort of make a mockery of the ideal. But the thing is, that ideal is not dead. It can be reconfigured. It just will not look the same. And that's where you're right, where this conservatism needs to be done away with. We need something that is like Janus faced. It's looking back and forward. And that's what
Mm.
most people can't do. You know what I mean? You need to look back and you need to look forward.
Yeah, whereas like it's particularly in Australia, but and to a lesser extent in the US and other countries, is that the reason that there's so much the reason that the political class is so sort of um, stuck is that they're not Janus face. They're like looking back. So their solution, so the conservatives' solution is always just, oh, let's give you a tax cut. It's
Mm,
like it's like that works for like, you know, back in the 90s and 2000s where like times were good, you know.
mm,
Whereas like what you know, and then of course you've got on an almost neo-Keynesian thing on the left side of politics, which is just pile money into the economy, which causes more inflation and all this sort of shit. We don't need to go. And also, like, um, the other element of the kind of old conservatism as well is that libertarian streak too. Like it's just lifting taxes and regulations and things like that. But that doesn't help either because especially when it comes to the cultural and the social, if you lift regulations on things and just like open up the borders, like we all just become gray goo. You know, it's just like not so it's like this you can't use the old solutions or ways of being or like thinking like it's you've got to come up with new solutions and I think
It's
that's what's happening at the moment in a lot of places and I think and it's not just from a lot of it actually at the moment is coming from the right.
mm,
There's a little bit in the left as well but like people are coming up with like new ideas to try and meet the times and like, but most people in the political and the creative class are not meeting the times. What they're doing is like um, a LARP of like last century. That's what they're doing, you know?
and it's almost like what is needed now more than anything else. I think this is what you come to realize is like there needs to be ethnogenesis, right?
Mm,
Effectively, there is no us, right?
mm,
It's sort of bizarre to even bother talking about political issues relating to Australians when there is no Australians effectively
mm,
now because we don't have a real binding mythos anymore. And that's why I think this is where the creative in a sense comes in because you can, I mean, I think some people will find this distasteful thinking about like art and politics as so inextricably intertwined. But I'm really not talking about that. I'm talking more about peoplehood. And you recognize
mm,
like the great artists in some ways bind people together. Like that is what the greatest. They're almost religious in that sense. There was this idea, right, in the 19th century that the artist would in some ways take the place of art would take the place of religion because someone like Shakespeare defines what it means to be English in a very, very serious way. You know what I mean? And it's almost like that's what we would need is this is like getting into such ambitious artistic territory. Like I don't know who this would be cut out for, right? But it's like we need an artist, it's like to give us some sort of vision, like some sort of artistic vision of who we are. Um, and that will, like we said, like that will involve drawing on the past, but then it will also be something totally new.
mm. Yeah, and like even back when Cervantes was like this for the Spanish, like obviously Spain, you know, they had well they probably had like lots of different variations of their language, but it sort of cohered the Spanish language as well. And the same thing happened in Italy with Dante Alighieri,
Mm,
like that his particular kind of vulgar use of the Tuscan dialect is essentially it's not exactly the same, but it's essentially like how Italianization happened when it eventually happened. Is that everyone like official Italian is essentially it goes back to Alighieri's like use of that particular dialect in the Inferno. So it's like all of the artist is this kind of like funneling focus point for I guess you would say ethnogenesis. I would probably yeah, I'd probably say that like and the language too,
mm,
like a common language. Because I think that was the issue back then, is that, you know, because the issue isn't so much a language now because everyone speaks English. But the issue is sort of similar in a way that the instead of like thousands of dialects in a particular geographical location, they just decided on one, and that
mm,
the decision to focus it on one of those dialects came from artists essentially.
mm.
So much of that happened in Europe. You know, probably something similar happened in Germany too, and things like that. So.
Well, yeah, like Pushkin and that in Russia, like is
Mm.
responsible for like modern Russian and things like that.
So the artist is important, essentially, is what we're saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, this is like like we were talking about before. It's like, is any artist? I mean, like this is above our pay grade, right? But it's
Yeah.
like no one even thinks like this. You know what I mean?
No.
Like this would be so foreign. Because I was also thinking about the example of like Homer, right?
Mm,
Like he would have really defined, I think, in a very real way, like what it meant to be Greek. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So it is like what art can do is really extraordinary. What amazing great art can do is really extraordinary. This is the kind of ambition, and I think yeah, to go there is extremely larpy or whatever. But yeah,
Mm.
that's that is the defense of LARPing though. It's effectively defending grand vision, like
Mm.
having grand visions, having yeah, and also I think that it's distinct from utopian thinking in that it does actually draw from the past. You know, it's
Mm.
not like I think you can think again about Herzl, where it's like you know, he's thinking back to, you know, the Jews as they existed in biblical times and trying to recreate that. But, you know, I think at the same time he recognized that like you never step in the same river twice. You're not the same man, it's not the same river. Like everything is always different and yet the same. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. Like that's the contention of the piece. And yeah, I that's just generally what I think is like we need to be more ambitious and visionary, like
Mm.
artistically, politically, everything. Yeah.
When you say that, so a big part of you know a postmodern fiction and theory and stuff like that in the late 20th century was a key. There's a lot of different definitions of exactly what that is, but a key sort of component of it is often a suspicion, what they call a suspicion of like meta narratives or like
Mm.
grand narratives, like you say. And so and I think there is something to that when people said that, all of this stuff, things like David Foster Wallace, Zadie Smith, people like that, like those postmodern writers in like the 90s to back to the 80s, I think, were in a lot of the work, there was this sort of there was no longer a belief in the grand narratives, right?
Mm.
And so a lot of fiction has sort of proceeded from that point, right? That um, because there's almost like a social uh, there's a social atheism when it comes to, or at least an agnosticism when it comes to grand narratives, that people don't quite buy it. And so that's the sort of explanation as to why we don't have it from the more like postmodern thinkers or whatever. But I sort of used to kind of subscribe to that actually, because like if you look at the progression from modernism and all of like its exploration of consciousness and modernity and blah 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 blah, and then postmodernism just goes a step beyond that, which is just a I remember writing this magisterial blue book essay about this topic when I was an undergrad, and I can't remember who I was saying it to, but like I just would not be able to do that now because my brain is so fried from the internet. Like, I would have to like research for weeks to do something basically almost equivalent. But anyway, I digress. But I actually think so. I used to agree with the postmodernists that, like, people don't really buy into grand narratives anymore because of
Mm.
various things, like the way that the economy works, like the deracination, all of that sort of stuff.
And just
But
them having been deconstructed, it's like a magic trick. And once someone shows you how to do it, it's like kind of like, the
yeah,
Mm.
and
magic's gone.
it's cheap and the easiest thing to do in the world to deconstruct and subvert something. It is so
Yeah.
easy. Like,
Mm.
and that's why so much like in particular, like modern art is so garbage because it's just like, oh, I'm gonna tape a banana to the wall and I'm gonna call that
Mm.
art. You see what I'm doing? Nudge, nudge,
Mm.
wink,
The
wink.
fact that people are
And
talking about it shows that it's real
yeah,
art,
yeah, yeah.
even though they're all
Shut
saying
the
this
fuck up,
sucks.
faggot. But like, so but when I say recently, in the last couple of years, come around to the idea that actually, no, people will believe in what you tell them to believe in. And it's the
Mm.
same, like people will like what you tell them to like. And it's part of this kind of like imposing your will onto the world, saying, this is fucking good. This is awesome. This is like era defining. And the more you just keep doing that and like get people to join you in doing that, the more that people just say like agree to it. So I
Yeah,
feel
it's like
like that,
hypnotic repetition.
yeah, like because I feel like the postmodern like subversion or like suspicion of grand narratives, like the same thing happened. People just told them that that was the case, and people impose their will on that. And I just think that that's what you need to do if you want grand narratives to come back. You just need to make them come back and tell people that they're back, essentially.
Mm.
We're so back.
It was so back.
It was over, and then we are so back.
We are so
Yeah,
back.
I agree. It definitely it's so weird though. Like I just do not have a consistent view on this, right? Because I do on some level sympathize with that in that it is actually really difficult to imagine a narrative capturing like the heart of a nation in the way it might have in the past because there has been this great splintering, right? Like this great splintering. I think it's to do with like digital media, right? Like,
Mm.
could you have a sort of nation defining novel or nation defining play? And it's like, I don't actually know if you could. Herman Hesse, who's a great writer, he actually had a letter that someone sent me. I read it and I think I can't remember precisely when he was writing. I think it's late 19th century, early 20th century. And he was saying that he felt like even in his time, he felt like it was difficult to speak to large groups of people. Almost that already he felt like you couldn't create sort of like a grand narrative. And maybe there is some truth to that. I don't know. Like it's almost like I feel like increasingly like novels even like take so I've like I said I've been reading Nutcranker and I really recommend Nutcranker. I think it's a really good book. The cover, this is my critique, is fucking terrible. Now, I actually need to say that to him. That like because I actually didn't read it like we do judge books by their cover. I didn't read it based on the cover, and then I went, okay, I'm going to read it. It's a really good book with a quixotic hero, but I kind of wonder, could like would it appeal to people outside of people in our sphere or adjacent to it? I actually don't know. I really do not know. I'd be curious to see. I mean, that's one thing I'll ask him. I want to talk to Dan. It's like, does it appeal to people who aren't terminally online? Um, yeah, and I could almost see how like increasingly maybe books. I think Matt, we spoke about this, like how increasingly like people will not be catering to a reading public so much as like small groups of people.
Mm.
So that actually would be postmodern in a sense, right? Wouldn't it? That would be like the death of a grand narrative. Instead, people are catering to like smaller groups, smaller audiences.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I don't think that precludes grand narratives because what I'm sort of suggesting is not that like you will have the grand narrative in the book in the narrative so much as that it's an accumulation and it's sort
Yeah.
of like a more orientation towards what you're trying to do. Like, are you
Mm,
trying to like just do your little slice of life, quirky auto fiction, or are you like in a delusion, maybe even in a delusions of grandeur, quixotic
mm,
sense? Are you like aiming to like contribute to the grand story, and
mm,
I think especially for men, you kind of have to have this, like you kind
mm.
if whenever you do something, you have to have a kind of delusion of grandeur, like this is going to be the like, not that it's going to be the greatest thing in the world, but it's going to be a part of that, a part of something, that's going to be um like that will contribute to something. Men just want to contribute. This is the thing that like feminists don't understand. Like men just want to help out.
Yeah.
Like the most masculine thing in the world is when you see a guy like helping out some chick who's broken down on the side of the highway,
Mm,
Like every man will do that, And it's the same thing with art, I think. It's like, contributing, to
mm.
the grand story.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, and it's probably like I guess that even I actually never really got into like the modernism debate. I actually so what does that mean to you? Like what does a grand narrative mean to you?
Grand narrative is usually something like the way it's talked about in this sort of area. It's things like religion. So,
Mm,
and also it's things like that were questioned via modernity itself. So, some people read it back to like the invention of the printing press in the West
mm,
and how that, you know, allowed mass literacy, which in turn caused the Reformation because people could now get Bibles that weren't in like languages that they couldn't read because
Mm,
prior to that, only the priests had access to, you know, the stories in the Bible and the text and all that, and they interpreted it as well as being the only people who read it. This caused the schism. Um, so within that is the technological sort of kind of what would you call it? Ructions of the printing press caused a questioning of the religious,
mm,
and then that had knock-on effects throughout the centuries to eventually people just questioned the idea of God itself.
mm.
Going back to Nietzsche and stuff. And Nietzsche is a good example of this as someone who is a thoroughly modern thinker in a like this kind of radical skepticism about all the grand narratives and like this need to kind of transcend them, right?
Mm.
Um, and same with like ideas about the soul and the mind and stuff like that, and psychoanalysis being this big thing that comes about in the 20th century. Um, Things about like stuff like the Holocaust and stuff like that. All of this accumulation of all of these repercussions of modernity being sort of uh, disturbances that basically the grand narratives crumble because of
Mm.
that. And so postmodernism is like, with that skepticism, deconstructing it further, like even the whole idea of like a cohesive narrative in itself, or like characters who break the fourth wall. And like, this is like the kind of narrative version of that, all of this, like
Yes.
it's, you don't have a cohesiveness anymore. I think it's sort of like, there's way more to it, but like, that's essentially what it's all about.
I think like, again, I'm not going to pretend that I know a great deal about like postmodernism, but like I do sympathize in everything I just said, right? There
Mm.
is a kind of sympathy. It's funny though, I feel like with the deconstruction, right? It's almost one thing I noticed with all these people, right, is that they never actually were truly like the sort of nihilist or amoralists that they kind of thought, because they always
Mm.
did adhere to a kind of like
Mm.
Whig view of history, like
Mm.
the March of Progress, like they're the first people to be like, you're on the wrong side of history, etc. So I feel like they always did sort of have a grand narrative, you know what I mean, themselves.
Mm.
But yeah, I do think that it is interesting, like going back to what we were talking with LARPing. Um, it, I kind of do think to myself, like, I think that let's talk because this is obviously a literature podcast, right? It's like the artist could LARP in a way that is actually like silly, right? Like what I mean by that is I often think to myself, like, there are certain books, if you were to write them today, they would not like they had a great reception in their time and they're great books. But if you wrote them today, it's like they wouldn't like I don't know, like if someone tried to write like a Cormac McCarthy novel and they're like a millennial, like there's someone.
Many such cases, by the
Yeah,
way.
it just
Yeah,
doesn't feel
yeah,
true to our
yeah.
time. It kind of, again, it's like the literary equivalent of donning chainmail. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And I think that we're in this sort of maybe the reason, because before we were recording, we were talking about satire. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And maybe it's almost like what we're doing right now. It's like the satirist is actually in many ways a form like a deconstruction. Like it is a form of deconstruction, and maybe it's almost like we're trying to clear the way. Like it's almost like maybe you just need to clear all remnants. It's like a creative destruction, like all idols. This is very Nietzschean. It's like all idols sort of need to be destroyed because, like I was saying just a moment ago, these people who think like they have no idols often cling to some
Hmm.
idols very, very thoroughly. Maybe it actually is like the draw to satire now is this sense that like it is kind of dying and we kind of need something altogether new, but first it's like we need to clear the way. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Is that
Yeah,
does that yeah, I don't know, does that seem like right to you?
I get that,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, and like and then like it's also like a test, like a crucible or whatever to see what can like survive
Mm.
or rise from the ashes or something like that. You know,
Yeah.
like I do think like probably like is like, you know, the grand narratives once were like gate kept and it kept society in order. But I mean, that was a dam that was going to burst eventually anyway. So it's sort of like a period we need to go through, and it just sucks that we have to live into the century where it's like at its worst.
Mhm.
Mm.
But it's exciting too if you want to like
Yeah.
try to make the new ones. You know, that's what I mean about like having that delusion of grandeur, sort of like
Mm.
make, you know, put your brick in the new wall that is
That's kind
the
of what
grand
like
narrative.
Evelyn's Ride the Tiger is about. Is like keeping like this ember burning, and it may need to like just stay as an ember for centuries or millennia, but like it just like, you know, it's like you're saying like the frontiersman, the idea of it, like yeah, people laugh at it, but it's also keeping the spirit of it alive in
Mm.
a sense.
Yeah, it's
Because
very
that
yeah.
spirit will reignite. Like it
Mm,
actually will. When space like space colonization begins, and we're like mining the moon and doing all these things, it's like you
mm,
will have a certain type of person who like right now that sort of frontiersman archetype is probably doing very poorly, I
yeah.
suspect.
The aliens won't let you mine the moon, by the way. They're not going to let it happen. So
Okay. Well, yeah. I don't know, but you need to keep that. You're right. It's like you need to keep the ember alive, and it's funny in that like like maybe like with the Don Quixote, it's like he does in a sense keep that ember alive. You know what I mean?
mm,
Like that
Yeah.
ember of a different time, even if it is in comedic form. Like it's kind of funny to think like a comedic hero could be keeping like the ember of an old archetype alive, even if it is in satirical form. You know what
mm.
I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
And then creating his own archetype as well as in the quixotic hero,
yeah.
like, you know, and that being influential like in the new era, you know. And there's so many heroes like that that are themselves like redevelopments and redeployments of that kind of archetype. Like I'm thinking of Confederacy of Dunces. It's another example of a Ignatius Riley is kind of like a quixotic hero.
Can
He's
you
ridiculous.
because Confederacy of Dunces, that's another book I've been meaning to buy because I think that Nutcracker, like reading comments, I think it's pretty inspired. Like,
Mm.
because the Nutcracker, like it's got an interesting narrator in that it is third person, but the narrator is like it's almost as if it's being narrated
He's a neighbor or something.
by the protagonist.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's like it's third person narration, but it's almost like the interiority is like
Oh
so
yeah. So
yeah,
it's
it's like
close. It's close third person then.
yeah,
Yeah.
extremely close to
Yeah.
the point where it's almost indistinguishable,
Yeah.
right? Is that how Confederacy of Dunces is done, or
It's a little bit more removed. It's not
okay?
that. Well, you do hear his thoughts and stuff like that. Him complaining about his valve, his pyloric valve and stuff like that. Have you read it, Presta?
No.
Oh, you haven't. Yeah.
I have a copy,
What's it
but I
about?
haven't.
It's about a oh actually it is the more I think about it, the more it's about a guy in New Orleans who is like a really fat guy
Mm,
who's always farting, and that's like what that's why he talks about his valve, like his pyloric valve. He's really obsessed with the medieval period, right? So and his favorite thinker is Boethius or something. He's always quoting Boethius, and like he just goes about his like business in New Orleans. Like he lives with his mother. He's kind of a loser. He gets involved with like this like union thing with like the black workers at this plant that he ends up getting. I think he was work. It's been a while since I read it, but it's like a he's a man just like Quixote, he's a man out of time. Like he's
mm.
sort of like obsessed with the medieval period and medieval philosophy and the Wheel of Fortune and things like that, but lives in like one of these like modernity is, you know, churning around him, and it's just him dealing with that. It's actually super funny because of that. Yeah. And then of course
Nice.
the author killed himself before it was published, I think. Yeah.
That probably helped, to be
Yeah.
honest, with
Yeah.
with publication. But I was going to say, the quixotic character, I just feel like there's so much that can be done with it now because you think about like this sort of like Twitter slash like Substack ecosphere. Think about the humor. Like that
Mm.
has actually been one of the great contributions of these online spaces is the comedic like almost innovations, right? Like there would have been
Howling Mutant.
yeah,
Yeah.
so someone like Howling Mutant needs to be studied, right? Like
Yeah.
you read a small blog, like I was reading this one where it's talking about like he's like some black colleague comes up to him, he's like, "Are you one of those gamers?" And he's like, "No, I lied." Like you just you just read it and it's so funny. Like, and that sort of humor, I really do feel like it's in some sense unique, right?
Mm.
And then you think like, oh well, if Howling Mutant wrote a novel about like a quixotic character, like how interesting would that be? I
Mm.
just feel like the satire, I feel like that is the reason everyone is doing satire is because I feel like that that is, I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of satirical genius like in these
Mm.
platforms, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like satire is like, yeah, like you were saying before, it's like paving the way. It's like, um, you know, preparing the ground for something in the future or whatever.
It would be, and this is what I suspect. I suspect that satire is always common in late stage civilizations, right?
Mm.
Like that you would be able to track, like, um, yeah, its popularity it would always be at like a kind of a late stage, I do think.
It's very Spenglerian of you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, let's see. I wonder what Spengler has to say. Spurgler. What does Spurgler have
Spurgler.
on the topic? Yeah.
But yeah, like
Uh,
if a civilization is new, it probably has like a pretty like top-down fascistic like myth that would
Yeah.
be blasphemous
mm,
to joke about. And so once that's like
mm,
crumbled enough that you can joke about it without having your hands cut off or whatever, like then
mm.
you just gonna like devolve into satires, and then anything too earnest is just it feels corny.
Mm.
Mm, mm,
I think the key is though it's to have this is like the thing, right? Is I think that like we were saying before, if you were to write a heroic tale, you would just get lambasted, you yourself would get satirized, you would get made fun of, right?
Mm.
And it would probably just feel unrealistic and a bit larpy. But I think that the funny thing is, if you yourself, it's like I'm writing a satire, right? But then in that, what I think you can have, and this is what I think that this is what Don Quixote has. It has moments of genuine sort of heroism, moments where you
Pathos.
genuinely, yeah, you
Yeah.
find yourself admiring him, and like I think that. When I was reading Don Quixote, my hope was always that he would actually succeed, right? Like
Mm,
my hope was that he would actually that somehow he would manage, like we were saying, to convince the people around him, enough people, that he was actually a era-defining person. Because yeah, as in I was hoping that he would slip from LARPer to visionary, and that
mm.
doesn't happen. Quite the opposite. He ends up realizing that he's delusional on his deathbed. And Sancho, who he has convinced, is saying, let's go back and adventure and explore and do all these things. But the magic is gone and he realizes it can't be done. So, but basically what I'm trying to get at is like, it's sort of a defense mechanism in a way. Irony and satire and all of these things is like you can defend yourself from the lampooning, but then maybe you can actually have what we were talking about, like that spark, right?
Mm.
It's being preserved in like an embryonic or as an ash, right? But like you are preserving it nevertheless, even if it's in this weird form. You know what I mean?
Well, and it goes back exactly to what you were saying at the start with your own piece, where if you want to talk about something like serious and academic, you have to gotta make it go down easier. So it's got to be like a funny sort of thing to
Mm.
rug pull it. And it's a similar kind of dynamic, I think. It's like you start with this ridiculous premise, and then you've got the ember in there as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's
It,
actually that's like the truly so it's basically like it seems like you're totally being like you're being cynical, you're deconstructing, but actually in a weird, almost subversive way, there's an ember of like a grand narrative or something like that, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like you were even saying Welbeck earlier, his books are kind of like that, where it's like kind of absurd and the main character's like whatever, some like broken 40-year-old. But within there is kind of like a vision of how he would like society to be and like
Mm.
how like what's wrong with it and like so it's sort of like what's not said becomes super like obvious. And then like a book like Submission where he's showing like this is a culture that doesn't have those hang-ups. They have like vision. They don't allow you to like satirize like Muhammad and stuff like that. And like that's why there is like such a like a powerful force.
Mm. The muscular culture. Yeah.
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 Because he's
Yeah.
always critiquing it as being feminine, but that's
Mm.
so right. And you think about even cynicism, like the paradoxical thing about cynical people is that they're simultaneously also really idealistic. You
Mm.
notice, like, the reason that they're so jaded is because they often have this really high conception of what things should be like. You know what I mean? So it's funny, like in a way, that is what Willebeck is like. Like you could dismiss him as a super cynical, jaded, yada yada yada, but actually, like he has a conception of what society should be like,
Mm.
right? And like you said, it's like he sneaks it in, right? He sneaks it in. It's always like even like you think about it, right? You can definitely say one of the most jaded, cynical guys, but he's really delved into the French utopian tradition. Like he
Mm.
loves Auguste Comte. He loves. Oh my God, I'm definitely gonna like stupid Anglo moment explaining all these words, but I'm saying
Mm.
like he loves like Fourier or however it's pronounced. He loves these French utopian socialists, and he has lines where it's like, I believe that the movement of all history needs to end in movement. Like there's always like a snippet or a little piece of like what the future could look like. So yeah, I think there is something to that. It's almost like like again, the you think about like the actual this going back to me wanting to read a book on satire, on the history of satire. You can't talk about satire without talking about like the jester archetype and the clown. And we know that they have like, jester's privilege or whatever it was called, right? Like a
Mm.
capacity to say things that other people can't say because it's like, you're not a serious person. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And it's almost like that's what good satire often does, is it's like, oh, yes, 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 I'm funny and ridiculous. But then at the same time, the holy fool, there is a little bit of truth, something, you know what I mean? Hidden in there. Yeah.
Mm. 100%. Um, so yeah, do we have any other thoughts on LARPing, Russell, that you wanted to share before we
I
finished up?
reckon, I reckon we all, we both Matts, we just go chuck on some chainmail, go to Albert Park.
Yeah,
Just,
right.
just the
All
three of
right.
us
Yeah,
and
let's
try and
do it.
start our own just try and start our own yeah, because like the line between a visionary and a larper is very thin. So yeah, we
Mm,
go to Albert Park, we start to fight with swords. That's
hell
basically it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Frest is a skateboarder, so maybe we could incorporate skating as well. Like be the
Yeah,
first
wear like knee pads and stuff.
skate larpers or something like that. Jousting on skateboards. That'd be
That,
The Jackass,
amazing.
I'm sure already did
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Oh, did they?
that is the
On bicycles.
archetype, the archetype of the jouster reimagined for modernity, right? It never dies. The spark never dies. It's always there.
All right. So where should people find you? Just on Russell Walter Substack or
Yeah, I do have a YouTube channel, but I'm not really doing much of that anymore. So yeah, but
yeah, you
yeah,
used to do video essays and stuff, right?
yeah. I
Yeah,
used to
yeah.
do video essays. Don't do that anymore. Can't be
Just
bothered.
just writing on Substack.
Just writing on Substack. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah, really good pieces. You should really subscribe. You've already got plenty of subscribers too, which is great.
Mm,
Testament to your interesting topics.
yeah,
And yeah, I'm a subscriber, so you should be one too.
hell
And
yeah.
I'll have a link there for you to subscribe and this piece as well, which was really fun. I love the picture too. I don't know where you got that picture of the guy with the elf ears, but
Yeah.
was it AI or did you find it somewhere?
No, it's I got it from Wikimedia. That's what I do. Is like I just went and looked up LARPing images, and yeah, no, it's not. I've never used an AI image. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just don't like. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it either. It's sort of I get the arguments about pe how people say, oh, it's just easier, but also I'm just like, it just doesn't look good. It never looks good to me. So
Yeah, it has a specific style, and then it's just sort of like you associate it with just like corporate kind of like
Hmm.
slop.
sort of,
Yeah,
yeah.
And
yeah,
I think that what people say is true is that like if like I do judge like if I see that you've used an AI image, I do kind of presume that your article's gonna
BAI.
be relying
Yeah.
on AI.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, though I don't know. There's also other arguments. I wouldn't actually. I'm not against like I have actually previously used AI to like for example, you know how you have like a blurry PDF image of a book. It's like I'll
Mm.
chuck it into AI and be like clean this up. I use it like that way. But
Oh,
Well, that's smart.
yeah, I
yeah,
didn't know you could do that.
yeah, you can clean up images using AI. So that's actually I think a good use of it is so I would do that with an image. So I've done that with maps before as well.
Yeah, I have no problem with using it for just like mechanical tasks. It's just when it's like creativity stuff, like I don't know, maybe like AI is just like destroying the grand narrative of a writer or a creative or
Oh,
something.
dude, don't fucking get started. That could be here for
Yeah,
another fucking hour.
Yeah.
Dude.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. All right, guys. Yeah, good to talk to you. And yeah, we'll have another horse sesh one day if you want to
For
do.
sure.
Yeah, we'll do a
Yeah,
group or
I actually
something.
reckon we should do. I was gonna say we should try and I'm keen to just do. It's so convenient being Australian. Like
Yeah.
it's just so easy to fucking organize these things. So
Mm.
I reckon we should try and do it kind of like frequently. That'd be good.
Yeah, that'd
Cool.
be awesome. We go on yours, you go on ours, sort of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly, exactly.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
And we'll paywall them.
Yeah.
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 That's
I might
it.
keep this one free, but
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
see.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I'm saying like that is actually something that we could do because I always feel like I can't paywall. But then
Mm,
if it's like like we're doing it for each other, we could paywall them. You know what I
mm,
mean?
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
that's a good
Cool.
idea. All right. I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. See you
Take it
later.
easy.
Catch ya.